What is one lie you must keep up that you hate, but it covers up a much bigger fuck up? I have 3. Each one was the worst in its own way. The day my father was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease, I cried. I'm not a crier or a very emotional person. I'm more Vulcan-like, I guess. Not saying I'm a hard ass, just that I'm good at keeping up appearances. That caused me to lose it. That's the impact it had on me. The worst lie I maintained was that there was any improvement or ever going to be any improvement, no matter what medicine he took. My parents were both hopeful. My family was hopeful. People prayed left and right, and every good day was met with praise Jesus and maybe it isn't Lou Gehrig's after all. They basically forced me to say maybe they were right plenty of times. I didn't want to tell them the truth. He isn't going to get better. He's going to become more paralyzed until he can't get enough oxygen. Then he's going to die. Even the day he went out for a hospice weekend, my mom and I were his only caregivers 24/7 for years. I wanted to pull my mom to the side and say, this is CO2 poisoning. He can't breathe out enough, and it's building up in his system. Say your goodbyes. His time is short. I recognized his change in behavior. I recognized his symptoms. Even the nurse at the hospice place wouldn't have any of it. I could barely open my mouth. Well, he died that day, just like I knew they would. And I couldn't very well go and tell him goodbye. I did the best I could without alerting him to the possibility of it. There's 2 lies, I guess. The third lie is that I hated to see him go. No, I loved to see him go. I didn't cry when he died. His suffering was finally over. Almost every minute of his last 6 months was hell for him. He could barely move anything at all. I mourned when he was still alive, but not enough people in my life would understand that for me to ever tell anyone I knew in real life. Thanks for listening, Reddit. I've never told anyone this, and don't suspect I ever will again. Edit. I really appreciate all the support, kind words, and experiences. I'm generally a reserved person emotionally, to say the least, but almost every post had me in tears. All kinds of tears. Happy, sad, empathic, hopeful. I don't think I've ever experienced such a wide range of emotions such a short period of time. The gold is great, but my kingdom for a box of tissues. My husband and I were spending a few days with my dad and stepmom at their house, and we were hanging out downstairs. When I go upstairs to change clothes, my husband runs up a few minutes later to use the bathroom. Since he is in the guest bathroom, I use the one in the master bedroom. When I come out, my husband is standing in the doorway of the guest room, silently and frantically motioning for me to come over. When I get in the room he says, dude, I clogged the toilet, and it won't flush. You have got to find a plunger. So I'm looking around upstairs, but can't locate one. I tell him I'll have to go down and ask my dad where they keep it, and he begs me to take the blame, to save him the embarrassment of clogging my parents' toilet with his massive pups. When I ask my dad where the plunger is, he gives me a weird look, and I tell him that I accidentally clogged the toilet. Him and my stepmom go on a scavenger hunt for one, but come up empty-handed. My stepmom is like, I don't think we have a plunger. What the fuck? Who doesn't keep a plunger for those unexpected moments? Great. Now what? My husband is still hiding in the guest bedroom. Since no plunger can be located, my stepmom gets a yardstick from her craft room and proceeds to the bathroom to unclog the toilet. She faking chops my husband's pup into enough tiny pieces to flush the toilet with a faking yardstick, giving me looks. Dad too. My husband emerges from the master bathroom, toilet flushing in the background. What's going on? I told him I clogged the toilet, and he starts laughing, and my parents start teasing me, making pup jokes, and talking about how they are going to have to get my stepmom a new yardstick, because I've destroyed the one she had. Yeah, my husband still owes me for that one. We laugh about it to this day, and my parents still bring it up in public. TLDR, took the blame for clogging the toilet at my parents' house, when, in fact, it was my husband's pups that did it. To add insult to injury, they didn't have a plunger, and my stepmom used her yardstick to chop up the pups so that the toilet would flush. My roommate and I knew a younger guy, about 18, had some major drug and alcohol problems. He was staying with us for a week to try and get clean, since he lived about 3 hours away. One morning, I come into the living room and we are watching TV when he says, "I think my roommate came in here last night and grabbed my dick. I think he molested me." I stare blankly and remind him that roommate had been in a different state on business for the past 2 days. He says nothing, but mutters under his breath. I know he was planning on trying to blackmail and besmirch my roommate's good name, but forgot that detail because of his drug-addled brain. He never got the chance. He went back to his home 2 days later and was in a serious car accident. He and his girlfriend were both drunk, and neither of them remembered who was driving, her because she was drunk, and him because he sustained massive head trauma and can't function properly, can't talk, can't walk, can't use the bathroom, etc. If it weren't for his blinking and guttural moans, he'd be a complete vegetable. Here's the worst part, the part that pertains to this post. I never told anyone what he had said, or what I know he was planning. He was a piece of shit that was going to take advantage of my roommate, who is the best guy I know. After the wreck, my roommate was crushed. He thought he could done more to keep the guy safe, and he did everything he could for the guy and his family afterwards. He doesn't know what the low-life scum was going to do, and God help me, he never will. I dropped out of a private high school and moved to SoCal to pursue other goals in life. Needless to say, without even a diploma I was not gonna get anywhere. So, I started to research and build a resume and portfolio based on my interests. I ended up meticulously building a Forks life that everyone I was around started to believe. I told my family in another state that I had got my JED, passed 2 years at a community college, and then attended a 4-year university and graduated with a degree in history. This wasn't all at once. I let them know what I was doing as I was doing it. It all went so smoothly. I then got a job at a museum as an event coordinator and make $56K a year. I have no high school diploma, no college education, nothing. All I have are excellent work references. The jobs I did get I made sure I did well, and apparently that was enough for them to hire me at my current job. I'm attractive and well spoken, professional in appearance and actually very intelligent. I was always afraid that they would check my school references, but so far it's never been brought up. Apparently, work references and experience mean a great deal more than where you went to school these days, and if you have glowing references you are pretty much set. Sometimes it gets stressful, and I find myself bothered by it at night. I can't tell anybody that I get into a relationship with who I really am. Even my family thinks I'm somebody I'm not. Nobody knows. Nobody. It gets very lonely sometimes. TLDR. Found out I was pregnant after hooking up with someone who was more or less a stranger. Force myself to starve and purge myself so that my body was physically incapable of nurturing an unborn child. Never told anyone. Decided to make a throwaway for this. This is less of a lie as it is an omission of the truth, but it's still relevant and still kills me to cover it up. I was in San Francisco for a couple of weeks the summer before my senior year of high school. My parents had let me go on this trip knowing that I would be nearby to some close family friends, but in all honesty I spent the whole time just kicking it with one of my closest girlfriends. I had the time of my life and I don't regret a single second there. But I did hook up with a guy several times. Each time, we were pretty drunk. I'm confident we used protection. In fact I'm 110% sure we did. Anyways, I went back home, but still kept in touch with this guy and my other friends back in San Francisco. But I started feeling sick a few weeks later. My senior year was starting, and I couldn't get the nagging thought out of my mind that maybe, just maybe I was pregnant. I didn't want to be, but I didn't rule out the possibility. So I went down to the drugstore, bought a few tests, and tried 1, 2, 3, and all came back with the same result. I was, without a doubt, pregnant. Now, during this time I was still really ill. I was still preoccupied with my habits of anorexia and bulimia, and no way could I be pregnant because I was too young. I was about to go through my senior year of high school and I would probably gain so much weight. Understand that I was really ill, and as faked up as those reasons sound, it was exactly what was going through my mind. So, For the next 2 weeks, I restricted my meals so much that I was consuming under 300 calories a day. I exercised enough to burn off all those calories, and then some. And whatever I did eat, I always followed up with a bottle cap-sized portion of ipecac, a liquid that induces vomiting. Most of that time is a blur, just like most of the years when I was ill. But I do remember that after those 2 weeks, I took a few more tests, and I wasn't pregnant anymore. I try not to think too hard about what happened, because the idea that I was totally comfortable with this just a few years ago terrifies me to no end. I never told the guy I hooked up with that I was pregnant. I never told him about the decisions I made. I never even made him knowing an option. I got rid of a problem quietly because I was scared and too young to have a kid of my own. I haven't told anyone I've dated, or actually anyone I know, since then. I keep it because it wouldn't benefit anyone by knowing what the truth is now. I still feel terrible about it and probably always will. A perfect thread for me. Right now I'm covering not 1, not 2, but 3 massive lies against 3 groups of people who all have varying levels of knowledge regarding my circumstances. Recently, I failed out of the nursing program due to what I believe was a mix of politics and a failure to pass a single simulation. I was, naturally, devastated. After trying to restart my major in physiology, my parents inevitably found out and decided it was time for me to hit the road and head to a new school, which I was okay with, seeing as the current university I attend has very little to do around here. Plus, it's a cheaper affair, so my parents will be happy. Everyone will be happy. During the summer, however, I took on a new job at a store in addition to my other job with the university. I'm also in a fraternity on campus. So, now I'm living a giant lie that I have grown quite a callous to. Here are the people and what they do not know. Fraternity brothers, some closer brothers know I failed the program, but they do not know I will be leaving. I will tell them soon. The finance officer might know though. I haven't heard from him yet though, despite the fact that I already have affiliated with the chapter on the other campus. My nursing buddies, none of them know I failed to the program. I plan to never tell them. Ever. My store job. They will know in a few days. They expect me to, however, swear complete allegiance to them. They continue to train me to be one of their most important people. Drama will inevitably ensue. My other university job. I will be sending them a formal resignation letter tomorrow. Doing so disgusts me on a physical level. I know some of the people there rather well. They do not know I failed the program. The roommates. They are completely unaware of anything. I don't care if they know or not, frankly. This whole affair has caused me quite a bit of grief and anguish, but I have grown quite callous towards it, as I've had quite a bit of time to think things over and approach them at my own pace. At times, I'm excited for my new beginning, but other times I feel uncertain and confused. I know that things will get better. And that, my friends, is the story of the affairs that have dominated the most recent 3 months of my life. When I was 12, I was walking down a wooded path at the lake. The path was a path simply because there was a trail of packed wood mulch in the ground that seemed to suggest that, yes, this is a path. Though there was no sign, so I didn't actually have any way of knowing. I was going off of a gut feeling that I like to call my sleuthhound instinct. This path curved and winded around trees that sat atop a very short cliff. Below that rocky cliff was lake water. You see, I was at the lake, and this path wound its way around the lake. And I was on this path, around the lake, and with me, I carried a walking stick. The stick was of natural make, in that it came from a tree. However, it's likely the stick was the tree as well, because it was too straight to just be a branch. This tree that I carried with me was around 4 feet long, as I remember, and as such, it made a good walking stick. Walking tree. As I made my way around the path around the lake with my walking tree in hand, I happened upon a feisty little chipmunk blocking my path. Being 12 at the time, and having an imagination that goes about 7 times the speed of sound and occasionally faster than light, in my mind I saw this as nature's equivalent of a Renaissance highwayman. Here I was, alone, on a path, in the middle of the woods with nowhere to run. In front of I was a feisty little chipmunk who was refusing to budge. Chip Chanazy, which I've just decided was the chipmunk's name, ran these parts of the woods, and you had to pay a toll to get by him. Many a smaller chipmunk had met his doom at the slender paws of Chip Chanazy, so it only makes sense that his next great heist would be to rob a 12-year-old boy. The cosmos ordained that I should be that 12-year-old boy. Myself, being a devilish young rouge, wasn't about to turn tail and run, though at the same time I wasn't about to pay up the toll to Chip Chanazy. I had a reputation to keep. So there we were, Chip Chanazy and I, facing each other down on this mulched wood path, as though we were in some Wild West showdown. He chirping me on, and I unwavering, trying to think of a way around him. Then it hit me. I have a walking tree. Walking trees are considerably larger than most woodland critters that dot about the forest floor, Chip Chanazy being no exception. Heaving my great walking stick overhead, I gave out a mighty bellow that would have made Thor himself jealous, and pretended to bring the walking tree down on Chip Chanazy's head, stopping it inches above him, because I expected him to flee. Instead, he braced himself for the hit and refused to move. This was going to be more difficult than I thought. Chip Chanazy was indeed a worth opponent. With a trickle of fear now running down my back, I knew I had to rethink my strategy, though I could not let him know I was now afraid. Obviously pretending to hit him wouldn't work. At the same time though, I was in a vice. I couldn't actually kill Chip Chanazy, for that would surely bring about the attention of even larger banded chipmunks in the area. Before I knew, there'd be a price on my head and an acorn in my back. No, I had to act now, before Chip Chanazy had any time himself to think. Using my walking tree, I gave Chip Chanazy a great poke. He still refused to move, though I could now see in his eyes something that has been foreign to his psyche for years: fear. I gave him another jab, and another. Eventually, Chip Chanazy decided I was too great a foe for him to match, and retreated into the woodland foliage, no doubt shouting out chipmunk curse words to me as he did. It was a great victory, and an even greater day to be alive. Following my narrow brush with death, I felt as though the sun itself were brighter. That evening I felt the need to inform my family what had happened that day on the woodland path. How I, a mere 12-year-old, had ousted the greatest chipmunk bandit to ever plague that lake. But as I began telling the tale, I grew afraid for myself. Admit to them I was afraid? Never. Tell them I'll let Chip Chanazy get away? Out of the question. And thus began the greatest lie I ever told, for I told my family that I had cleaved Chip Chanazy in the side with my walking tree, effectively knocking him into the air, over the cliff, and into the lake below. They drank it up like sweet wine. Time and time again, the story of how I slew Chanazy has come up with many a riotous bout of laughter, and myself, in an attempt to hide the truth, keeping a straight face point. But the truth is, Chip Chanazy survived that day, and may even be alive still. I fear what could happen to myself if word reaches him of my great lie. I have a doozy. I have a kid born at 24 weeks gestation, 16 weeks early. She weighed 1 lb 8 ounces. It was 14 years ago. She's profoundly disabled, mostly developmentally. She doesn't speak. Has autism. Why was she born so early? Unclear. The doctors say. I just went into labor. Doctors say I had a very high count of E. coli in my birth canal. That's their only clue of what might have been wrong. They usually then say we'll probably never know for sure. I know for sure. 14 years ago, I was in an argument with my husband, on the phone, and ran to the store to get some ice cream to settle my nerves. On the way to the store, my stomach felt queasy. I didn't stop. Focused on ice cream. I felt worse and worse, and I still bought the ice cream, then ran to my car to get home in time to relieve the coming storm. I didn't make it. As I drove home, I had epic diarrhea. Sorry, nothing could be done. I just sat there, raced home and cleaned myself up. I was pregnant. There's zero doubt that I introduced a massive amount of E. coli into the birth canal, which led to her catastrophic early birth and now profound disability. If I'd gone home when I didn't feel well, it wouldn't have happened. If I'd gone to the bathroom at the store, it wouldn't have happened. If I'd done something else besides want ice cream after an argument, it wouldn't have happened. If I hadn't argued with my now ex-husband about whatever, I don't remember what, it wouldn't have happened. She'll never be independent, never speak. My older daughter will have some responsibility for her whole life. People treat me with such respect and deference when they know how much care my daughter requires. I hate it. I'm not to be pitied. I feel overwhelming guilt about my daughter's life, how she was robbed of a normal life because of me and my selfishness. No one knows. I keep thinking this will ease the guilt, the sense of having this secret, the terrible desire to punish myself. It hasn't. I've made a weak attempt at having a life. My marriage ended, but I date someone. I'm overweight, only sorta. I lost some weight 3 years ago. I look much older than my age. I struggle to still care about what happens to me, although I know I need to care for her as long as possible. I resist respite from the care of my daughter as I don't think she gets a break from her situation. I'm sure people have no idea. I don't socialize with other parents of disabled kids unless they too cause their kids disability. They aren't in my same shoes. I don't like seafood. Plain and simple. Years ago when it was finally that time for me and my best group of butts to eat at some seafood restaurant, they all looked at me like I'm a dick for not ordering seafood. So on the spot, under peer pressure, I made up the lie I was simply allergic to all seafood and I could get sick and potentially die if I consumed some. 5 to 6 years later, every time we are out eating or someone is cooking seafood, they all mention how I'm allergic to seafood, to whatever friend/guest we are with, and just start talking about how much it must suck to be me for not being able to enjoy their precious seafood. Keeping up with this lie is pretty easy, but every now and then there are some people who ask a bunch of questions about my seafood allergy. What exactly? You can't eat? What happens if you do? How did you find out you were first allergic? You really don't want to try this shrimp? It's really good. Fish, shrimp, clams, canned tuna, crab, lobster, etc. Anything that comes from the ocean, I don't faking like it. But I understand how people love it, and I totally respect and admire it. But my human body does not agree with it. I don't like the taste. The times I have tried it, it's probably a mentality thing, but I just start gagging and feeling nausea. I just simply can't bring myself to enjoying seafood like other people do. TLDR, I don't like faking seafood. It isn't my secret, it is one that was told to me and kept up for years. I had a best friend in high school. 3 years of being inseparable, excluding senior year due to drama between me and his girlfriend. Him and I go to college together, become close friends again. After we both drop out of college, for different reasons, I realize I have been in love with him for several years, and the reason I don't put forth much effort in the few relationships I've had is because no one measures up to him. I finally tell him, and he says that the only way he would be able to marry me is if I switched to his religion. I couldn't do that without offending his religion, so I decline. I live with the regret of not being strong enough to be the woman he could have married. We still stay close friends, though. Fast forward a few years, one day he calls and tells me that he has found Mrs. Right. He is dropping $1.5k on a ring. I'm of course invited to the wedding, and of all days, the wedding is on my birthday. I regretfully inform him that I don't have enough leave time or money to make the trip. We hang up, and I cry like a baby, sad that it isn't me, but happy that he is finally going to be happy. Over time, he tells me how awesome of a wife she is, tells me how excited he is that they are expecting a baby, complete with the details of how she broke the news to him, and later, pictures of the daughter. He has been in the Marines since after we left college. Over time, we fall out of touch with each other. Every few months we call each other, or send texts or Facebook messages. One day 2 years ago, I sent him a Facebook message saying that I want to become better friends and keep in more constant touch with him, and I hope his family is happy and healthy. I get a message back the next day saying he just arrived in Afghanistan and of course we need to become closer friends again. One day later, he was killed by a roadside bomb. I'm not by any means a spiritual/religious person, but I work with someone that is a pastor in addition to working at my job, and I asked him to pray for his family, that he left behind a daughter and wife. I'm able to contact his sister through Facebook, but have no way to contact his wife. I offer my condolences to his sister and ask her to pass them on to his wife. His sister is dumbfounded and has no idea what I'm talking about. I quickly back out and tell her I must have misheard him at some point because I do not want to cause drama. Turns out the pictures he sent me were of his sister's daughter, and the story of how she broke the news of the pregnancy was the way his sister did to her husband. I know that this isn't what the thread asked for, but it was the first thing that came to mind. TLDR, friend lied to me saying he was married and had a kid. Found out neither was true after he was killed in Afghanistan. We had a flood in our house and my parents and sister had to move to an apartment temporarily. I ended up staying at my parents' friend's house for the time being, just down the street from my old house. We found bed bugs at the apartment when I stayed there one night, and after a huge clean, I thought I had brought the bed bugs back to my parents' friend's house. So at 1 AM in the morning I threw every piece of bedding in a garbage bag and was going to go home to do laundry. The problem was, my parents' friends sleep with their bedroom door open, and they own a restaurant, so they were wide awake. I tried creeping out, but the dad was all, "Are you going out now? It's 1 AM" and I said no and slunk back into my room and slept on a bare mattress that, maybe, had bed bugs on it. The next day I woke up at 6 AM and was dragging my stuff home, and his wife was awake and wondering why I was dragging it home and awake so early. I also brought the exterminator home and got caught doing that. So my mom told her I had a period mishap and needed to clean everything, and that the man coming into the house was a guy who specialized in mattress cleaning. TLDR, thought I had bed bugs, got caught dragging stuff out of my parents' friend's house, had to lie about having a period accident on the bed. 3 lies. Around the age of 12, a close family friend and I joined Taekwondo together. His mother and mine were best friends, Korean women. He was a tall, chubby kid and just very slow sluggish fighter as well. He was always underperforming in everything. He would continuously get scolded by his mother for his lack of skills. It was hard to watch because he was a really good friend to me. Anyways, our school enters into this tournament out of town. For myself, I'm doing well at the tournament. I think we were all green belts at the time. I won a gold medal for the form part of the tournament and my friend didn't place. Again, his mother just trashing him in the stances whenever he sat back with her. It was embarrassing for him and hard to watch. The sparring matches comes up and we're in the same group. I was trying my best to help him focus and coach him as well. Our master was not great with giving advice surprisingly. I'm kicking ass and winning my matches. My friend, being the size he was overpowering his opponents. Each of his matches, he barely won with 1 point or 2. Just really close calls, but exciting for me. I'm rooting for him on the sidelines. His mom, not impressed. She tells him he better get into the finals and win. Coincidentally, my friend and I both made it to the finals. We have spared plenty of times previously at our school and I can easily dominate him due to him being so slow. As we sit on the sidelines, he started to cry. I asked him what's wrong and told him he should be excited that he made it this far on his own. He told me he knew I was going to win, that he had no chance to beat me because he never could before. I looked at him, then at his mother, and whispered to him that he is going to win this match. You're going to get this gold. I came up with a plan for our match. I told him that we will make this a close match, but in the end, I'll give you a look and you're going to kick high and hit me in the head for the 2 points. We both knew he wasn't flexible enough to do so, but I told him it is going to happen. Match started and we are fighting. For every point I made sure he countered with his point. It is actually turning into a great match, better than I expected. More than anything, his face was lit up and determined. I almost forgot I was going to give up this match and started to try harder. Somehow, something changed in him and he was putting his all into it. Anyways, final seconds and we are both tied. I gave him that look and he went for it. Actually, his high roundhouse knocked me to the ground. It was much better than we both expected. Both of our eyes are as wide as an owl. It was like our rendition of Karate Kid. Loud cheers are roaring from everyone, especially me. I ran up to him and tried my best to pick him up, failed miserably. It was a great moment for him and for me. His mother ran down and gave him the biggest kiss, hug, scream, you name it, she did it. He couldn't stop crying. She told him, "You have made me proud, and I'm so sorry for being so hard on you." He didn't let go of his mother until they gave us our medals. We met outside and repeatedly thanked me for it. I told him that he deserved it, that I was actually trying to fight back because he was doing so well. I told him that I'm happy that he could make his mother proud. His mother came out and praised him again, then faced me and told me that I needed to do better if I wanted to beat her son. I laughed and told her that her son is much better than she thinks. Never told anyone that story. I have a small scar on the right side of my abdominal muscles. I was growing up as a very lonely child without my parents. Story above. My family was not present, and I rode with my friend's family. I guess you can say it was all circumstantial as to why it was like that, but nonetheless a tragic effect on me mentally and emotionally. Once I got into college, I took a turn for the worse. Depression leads to drug abuse, suicidal thoughts, and wanting to be alone mostly. Anyways, I'd reached the very rock bottom. I submitted to my thoughts of this life is not worth living. I accepted it, and I knew that it had to end. During my visit back home for the weekend from college, my family stepped out to the grocery store. I sat in my room that I grew up in and where my depression began. Every moment of pain was reliving in my head. I went to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and sat back down on the floor in my room. You go through this numbing feeling in your body. Your ears has a very bleak ringing sound but muffled as well. Your vision is hazy and blurred from the constant tears running a trail down your face. I pierced the tip of the knife through the skin and felt nothing. In that very moment, your mind runs through a black and white movie. Some say you go through flashbacks, but for me, it was the very close future. I saw my family over my grave. My mother on her knees crying and screaming that it was her fault. My brother sitting on one knee with his arms over my mother's shoulders trying to console her, and my pops standing up and looking away with eyes filled up with tears, but trying his best to not let them fall. Never seen him cried, ever. It felt like a clip in a loop playing over and over again. It felt like an hour movie, but the moment I snapped out of it was probably only seconds. I had blood dripping down my stomach and staining my drawers. I got up and patched up with a first aid kit. All of this happened before my family came back home. Never told them what happened, even still to this day. I was once asked from my brother how I got that scar, and told him it was from an accident when I fell down somewhere. They still don't know how much pain I went through as a kid and how much it has affected me and turned me into the person that I'm today. I still disconnect with people, and it is difficult to invest myself into someone. I made up a person. Then I made up a lot of people, I don't know why. A few years ago, I just casually made up this friend of mine in a conversation with some people at a party. I never saw any of them again, but for some reason, I just kept on telling stories about this one guy. Nothing extraordinary. I made a conscious effort not to be that guy who claims to have a friend who has done everything and owns everything. It was just mild casual stuff, like saying that I had gone to concerts or movies or something with this friend. No one ever cared enough to want to meet him. I don't think I ever expected anyone to. When I got tired of the lie, I just said that he moved to Indiana for work. Everyone just shrugged it off, and so did I over time. I created a network of imaginary people that I could use as an excuse for casually disappearing. The truth is that I was a heroin addict, and I needed to justify the hours in which I would just disappear. My imaginary friends were a justifiable enough excuse for no one to question it. My real friends all know now that I had a problem, but they do not and cannot know just how bad it was. They think it started around the time that the first imaginary friend moved. They don't know that it started long before then, or that I don't even know where I was most of the time when I was hanging out with said fictional people. I'm sober now, but I don't think I can tell many people the full truth. I told my best friend. I told my current girlfriend, who didn't know me back then. Everyone else is in the dark about just how far I went to cover up my addiction. TLDR made up a bunch of imaginary friends to hide the fact that I was addicted to heroin. I met this girl online a few months ago. She initiated contact with me, and although I was hesitant at first of even answering her message, I gave it a chance, and it turned out to be one of the best relationships I've ever had. Unfortunately, it only lasted 2 months. She didn't want to tell people how we really met, so we made up a story how we met at a grocery store. That wouldn't have been so bad maintaining just that as the story, but I took a side job overseas for a week and told everyone I work with I was going on vacation with her. I had to lie, because if my boss found out I was really doing I would probably lose my job, working for a competitor, even though it's in a completely different country. Well, out of the blue she decides to get back with her ex-boyfriend of 5 years, or so she said, but that's another story, and ends it. So now for the next month I have to maintain not looking depressed in front of coworkers, and pretending to go over her place after work, and avoiding common friends of some of my coworkers on the weekends just to make it look like we were still going out. 2 weeks after getting back from overseas, I tell everyone she left me. It made it all the harder on me, because now I have everyone believing me and I had this awesome time overseas, and for the last 3 months we have been living in some 80s Molly Ringwald romantic comedy come to life. I had to be real strategic about showing off pictures of our time on vacation to the coworkers. I told everyone she took most of the pics and only took a couple on my phone. Now that it's been a while since the fictitious end to our relationship, things have finally calmed down with people bringing it up, and I feel like I can relax a bit. The short version is, I met a girl on a dating site, we lied about how we really met, then she became part of a lie, so I could moonlight with another company for a week behind my current company's back. How I met my boyfriend. What we tell everyone, we met at a school event /con/ we were internet friends, and it became more after hanging out. The truth. I posted a blacked out photo of my costume for the upcoming AnimeCon. We exchanged a few words, just details of the event, on /cgl/4chan. He normally doesn't lurk that bored, but he did, because he was considering going to the con. He happened to go to it last minute that day despite running on an hour or 2 of sleep after his friend's bachelor party or something. His friend was snoring loudly because his other friend called him up. He happened to remember my post and decided to ask if it was me. We ended up hanging out the rest of the con. Even though I was 16 at the time, he was 21. I was too young for him. We were Facebook friends after that, but we didn't really talk to each other much until about a year later, when he noticed I was always up till ungodly hours of the morning like him, and he decided to message me. This brought about a 2.5-year platonic friendship, where we only hung out about 2 or 3 times, because he lives a 2-hour bus ride away, plus any VR really asked to hang out where we would just talk about random shit or our problems. Last year we ended up hanging out 1 to 3 times a day. I was in the middle of a bad breakup, guy I had dated on and off for 3.5 years, basically guilting me to get back together with him, even though I didn't want to because of many reasons. I tried even though I didn't want to, but other things happened, and at that point I was done and just wanted him to leave me alone. But I was pretty spineless and had no one to really talk to, along with being inexperienced. Anyways, we ended up getting together after a night of hanging out at my house. I've been much happier ever since. He's a great guy, and I hope to be with him for another year. At the end of this semester, I signed up for 2 online summer school courses at a state university to help get some credits for my full-time liberal arts college. This is important later. They started at different times, one 4 weeks before the other, so I thought it would be a piece of cake. Well, a few weeks later I log on to the course, only to realize it started a week ago, and I've missed 2 deadlines for assignments that were due the first week. As the course progresses, I end up giving up and not doing the last couple of assignments, or taking the final exam, so I fail the course. Now my second course has started up, and has 2 weeks left of the 6-week program. I haven't submitted anything, nor done any of the work. I keep telling my parents, who are paying for all of this, which is a couple $1,000, that I made an A on the first course, and I'm caught up, and doing well on this second course. Lie #1. I intend to tell my parents, when I get back to school in the fall, that my college won't let me transfer the credits, because the program isn't in line with the liberal arts. Actually a real argument. My school is notorious for not accepting transfer credits from non-liberal arts institutions in order to cover for the fact that I actually just failed both courses out of sheer laziness and stupidity. Because of this, I may have to take an extra semester or two of undergrad in order to go into medical school like I want to. I feel awful, but I can't even consider coming clean because my parents are also paying for undergrad and have said they'll pay for medical school as long as I do well in all of my studies. If they find out, I'll be cut off and I won't be able to finish undergrad or get into med school. Made new account because old one is known by friends and boyfriend that I had a girlfriend when I was 14. This lie has been told so many times that I'm starting to believe it. True story was, I fell in love with this girl at 14 and we were very close friends, but I dare not confess because I was afraid that she would find me weird and ruin the friendship. Then I left for another country for high school and we kept in contact. I was under severe depression, feelings bottled up inside, and with every day drifting further and further away from her, she became more and more perfect in my head, and I was more and more lovesick and heartbroken with my own thoughts and her tales about her boyfriends. Well, one day I received an email from her. She has a girlfriend now, and she is looking to me for support. I confess my feelings. She said, "Do you really think I couldn't feel it? Why did you not say it?" I swallowed a whole pack of painkillers, all 26 tablets, after realizing how unattainable it has become, and how many chances I had to be so close to all I wanted. I lived. The aftermath was more depression meds. I was actually doing good and almost off medication. Her girlfriend contacted me and said, "We could break up if you want to." Of course I refused to let that happen, and their relationship continued. To everyone else, the story was I had a girlfriend at 14, and it ended badly, spiraling me into depression for 4 years. I can't bring myself to explain how I attempted suicide because of all the shit that happened in my head. It's just overly psychopathic. Luckily everything is great now, and I'm living a pretty cool life with a caring person. In my mind, she is still that beautiful angel with amber eyes that could save me, much like how Daisy is perfect, but beyond reach to Gatsby. Wow, I have to admit, I've been a compulsive liar in social situations, so I have a lot of stories that fit this post. Here's a couple. There was a guy that grew up around me whom I couldn't stand as a kid. He was always achieving what I couldn't and would not let it down either. Whenever I screwed up, got suspended, or failed a class, even my mom would say, "Why can't you be more like X?" Ugh, I hated him. As an adult, I visited my parents and lo behold, X is visiting the neighborhood as well. I was with my friend, X, and my parents. X said something really stupid, so I elbowed my friend to show my annoyance. X saw me though, and asked if there was something wrong with my arm. I made up an excuse and said that sometimes my arm kicks up to the side. Well, turns out X works for the mayor's office and has a professional relationship with the mayor's doctor. He immediately said he would refer me to the doctor. I tried to say I didn't want to go, but my mom bitched at me about how I would be throwing away an opportunity to see a great doctor and I should do as X suggested. I had to show up to the doctor and pretend there was something wrong with my arm. I figured he would take my word for it and give me some painkillers or something. Wrong. He looked at me like I was crazy. It was really awkward. And for those that are asking why I even went, I was in the process of moving back in with my parents because I had recently lost my job. My parents were the type to control my affairs, so I couldn't really do anything about it. Besides that story, there was the time I lied to my finances parents, who were wealthy, about my family owning a country estate and that they should go up there one time. One day, they tried to take me up on that offer. I had to drive them in a random direction outside the city hoping they would get tired and ask to just go back. I once told a girl I was a marine biologist. I wasn't. We were walking along a boardwalk to a beach one day when we saw something huge on the shoreline. Turned out to be a beached whale. Since the girl thought I was a marine biologist, she asked me to go and see if they needed my help. I ran up to the creature and pretended to help the others already there. Turned out there was something stuck in the creature's blowhole. An old friend of mine back from my hometown lied to his wife about being in the military. Now, he did sign up for the army, but before he signed his last waiver, or whatever it is, I don't know much about this stuff, he opted not to go. We ended up getting sheet-faced with all of our friends for a week to dodge the recruiter. A few years later we were all hanging out at his apartment with his girlfriend, now wife, and the topic came up. She heard mention something about her military man. We all laughed, because we seriously though she was joking, but when she got mad at us, we knew something was up. She then went on to say, just because he was injured in basic training and discharged does not degrade his service to our country. Which at that point we laughed harder, because we all knew he never went. He took us aside later that evening and basically told us that he lied to her to get something, sympathy, bussy, some not important sheet, and asked if we wouldn't bring it up again. I was crashing on his couch at this point because I was out of a job and didn't have a place to stay. I agreed to keep his dirt. Later, when they got married, her family wrote us something about Kelly marrying a serviceman in the wedding program. The lie was obviously bigger than what we had thought. None of us wanted to be the source of drama at the wedding, so we didn't say anything. Now fast forward a few years. They have 3 kids together, and she find out that I'm now a mortgage loan officer. She ends up emailing me asking how to get a VA loan. I didn't actually tell her the truth, but I couldn't exactly lie, since steering people away from applying for a loan is very unethical. I told her the documents she needed, hoping she goes to dig for them herself and put 2 and 2 together. I hate myself for not saying anything to her years ago. Lying about being in the military is one of the most awful things you could do in my opinion. I just hope I have nudged her enough she can find out on her own. TLDR, friend lets me crash at his place while homeless. Find out he lied to his wife about being in the military, kept his secret even when asked by his wife. I have too. I've worked so many Christmas days and other holidays, and have been asked why are you working. I just told them that I was Jewish, because I didn't want to have the I actually want to be home with my family instead I'm checking your lottery tickets conversation. I've said it so much, since I was 16 it often slips out now, and I don't backtrack it. It was so bad that I met my current boyfriend through a mutual friend, who I had told the Jew story to at work about how I used to say that to get customers off my back on holidays, and he had believed it. In turn, my boyfriend believed that I was Jewish. One night he sat me down and said we need to talk about something, and asked me why I never told him about being Jewish, and that he thought I was ashamed of it. In reality, I was raised in a strict Roman Catholic household. That I'm half Chinese. My fake id in university was that of a Chinese exchange student, and we really looked alike for some reason, especially when I did my makeup right. Both of my parents are white. It started out as a big joke among my friends and I, because no one thought it would work, but it actually did, numerous times. Somehow, someone got wind of it, and it got out. I went to a very small liberal arts university, and there was a prof there who was Caucasian, and generally believed she had the right to say that she was Chinese, because she had adopted her daughter from China. She found out, and started asking me all these questions about my mother and my ancestry etc. I had just taken a Chinese history class, so I had said that my grandparents escaped the Cultural Revolution and went to Canada, had my mom, where she met my dad, etc. I was her favorite student because of my fake ID. Info: I'm 17. For the past few years, I've become increasingly politically active. I've always leaned left, but wanted to make sure I hear all sides. Last summer, shortly after being hired at McDonald's, it was announced that Mitt Romney would be speaking at a nearby town. I convinced my dad to take me on last minute's notice. Since I hadn't even been employed a week, my schedule was really negotiable and basically contingent on when I could make it in to get my training sessions done. The head manager called. "You wanna do your last training shift tomorrow from 6 AM to 2 PM? Ick now. I'd love to, but I'm going to the Mitt Romney rally tomorrow with my father and I can't make that happen. Any other day this week, though." 2 things I didn't realize: the only people that go to political rallies are the supporters of the speaker. I didn't think going to a rally revealed where one stood on the political spectrum. My boss is a huge Republican and took great interest in me being a real, upstanding American young man. Since then, we have had countless discussions on how poorly Obama is doing, how much the Affordable Care Act is screwing our restaurant, how much gay marriage is ruining the foundation of our country, etc, etc. I faking approve of Obama, I faking love Obama, I don't care about other sexual orientations, and I wish I could tell you that, Mr. Michael, but I slipped up one faking day over a year ago and now you'll never know the truth. I pulled a prank on two of my best friends when they were staying at my house one night. My parents were at the grocery store, so I got my brother to use his unloaded airsoft gun to shot blanks while I went downstairs because I heard a noise outside. We tricked them into thinking there was an intruder outside, and they were scared to death and close to crying. While they were hiding in my closet, they were convinced that every normal sound they heard was the intruder coming inside our house and freaked out. They told me to call 911, but I said no, because I wasn't sure if it was actually someone in the house. My friend accidentally dialed 911 on her phone before I said that, and quickly hung up, which resulted in 911 calling her phone back. Friend took the phone and explained that there was someone inside our house while I panicked and told her in a hushed voice that it was a prank. She got so mad, but carried the story because we'd get in trouble if we said it was a prank. This resulted in an officer coming to our house, me lying to her that some neighborhood boys had been behind it and had lit firecrackers in our driveway. Awesome BS story like that. She called my mom, who freaked out, but when she got home she praised us for calling 911 and being so responsible. So I got rewarded with extra trust and respect from my parents for pulling a prank. To this day my parents do not know. It's my brother and I's dirty little secret. That sounded horribly wrong. TLDR. Pulled a prank on friends with brother. They called cops. I had to lie to cops and to parents on the phone. Got praised for being responsible by calling 911. I don't have anything bad, but I'll share anyway. I was with a friend at a hookah bar and we were doing hookah for a few hours or whatever, and everything was all fine and dandy. He had two friends that came along with us, and near the end of the night one of them pulled out some cigars for us to smoke. I'm by no means an expert smoker, and I had only smoked around 2 packs of Marlboros in my life up to that point, but I accepted a cigar anyway. For some reason I actually decided to inhale the smoke like an asshole, even though I knew that people often have a hard time with cigars if they aren't used to them. So halfway through the cigar I was feeling sick AF, so I asked if anyone knew where the restroom was, and I excused myself. So I start walking down the hardwood stairs, and next thing I know I'm sitting down on the stairs. I guess I passed out, which had never happened to me before. So I was horribly confused, but I stood back up and finished walking to the restroom. As I opened the bathroom door I noticed my face felt pretty numb, but I thought nothing of it until I looked in the mirror and saw that my lip was busted up and my face had a few scratches on it. So I washed up some blood off my face and held some toilet paper to my mouth and went back upstairs and promptly ended the night. My friend drove me back to my house, where I woke up my mom and got driven to the hospital, where I struggled to stay up until 5 in the morning while they stitched me up and made sure that I wasn't concussed or anything. I didn't tell anyone why I fainted. I just acted like I didn't know what happened and that I just fainted while I was walking down the stairs at my friend's house, and made no mention of the hookah bar. I imagine that the doctor smelled the smoke on my breath and clothes, but I hope that my mom didn't, because I think she would have been quite ashamed of me. I haven't smoked anything since then, and that was just over 12 months ago. When I was 15, 16, when I started really to play the guitar, I definitely wanted to become a musician. It was almost impossible because the dream was so big. I didn't see any chance because I was living in a little town. I was starting, and when I finally broke away from school and became a musician, I thought, well, I may have a bit of a chance. Because all I ever wanted to do is music, but not only play music but compose music. At that time, in Germany, in 1969 to 70, we already had discotheques. So I would take my car and go to a discotheque, sing maybe 30 minutes, I think I had about 7 to 8 songs. I would partially sleep in the car because I didn't want to drive home, and that helped me for about almost 2 years to survive. In the beginning, I wanted to do an album with the sounds of the 50s, the sounds of the 60s, of the 70s, and then have a sound of the future. I knew the synthesizer, why don't I use the synthesizer? Which is the sound of the future. And I didn't have any idea what to do, but I knew I needed a click. So we put a click on the 24 track, which was then synced to the Moog module. I knew that it could be a sound of the future, but I didn't realize how much the impact would be. My name is Giovanni Giorgio, but everybody calls me Giorgio. Once you free your mind about a concept of harmony and music being correct, you can do whatever you want. So nobody told me what to do, and there was no preconception of what to do. Not a big thing, but for a period of about 4 years I had really bad ingrowing toenails on both my big toes. It made it really hard to run and do sports, sometimes even walk, without feeling pain. Thing is, I didn't want to tell anyone. They either don't understand and think I'm just making excuses, or they think it's disgusting, and by extension that I'm disgusting, and that just plain hurts my feelings. So for about 4 years I systematically avoided being in situations where I had to run or play sports. I would walk slowly when I could, and sometimes when I was alone I would limp or walk backwards or anything that would help with the pain. I wore black socks because white ones would show the blood and pus from the wounds where my toenails were digging into my toe, and was always careful when removing my socks that I put them back on as soon as possible. These wounds would also get infected, hence the pus, which would hurt more than the actual wounds themselves, and would be almost impossible to disinfect, because the wounds were open all the time. This also meant that when I wore shoes that were the slightest bit tight I would be in constant pain. When I walked downhill I was in constant pain. When I accidentally banged my foot the pain was unbearable. Anyway, I didn't say anything about this to any of my friends for 4 years. Then I met a guy who had the same thing as me, and I had someone to talk to who actually knew what it felt like. Then 10 months ago I had a double operation on both toes, and about 2 months after that I was able to run and walk properly again. My parents are divorced, and my father's new fiancée is a wonderful person. She had 3 children of her own. When the youngest was little, he was savagely beaten at school and never 100% recovered mentally. She lives in constant regret that the extra attention she gave him may have caused his older brothers to get involved in drugs and other poor life choices. That said, they had appeared to be clean for years and had stable jobs. Last year, I got a call that the oldest son was in a horrific accident in a truck he had just purchased a few days before. He had lost control of the truck on an on-ramp, crossed 4 lanes of traffic, and hit the concrete median head-on. I noticed some extremely suspicious looking damage to the otherwise untouched rear frame, and resolved to pull the police report with the photos taken at the scene. I was worried the previous owner sold a car with a known suspension defect. What I hadn't expected to find was the toxicology report indicated drug levels in his system, indicated he had used as close as a few hours before driving. This was ultimately determined by the report as a contributing factor to the crash. I had to tell my father and his new fiancée that I was mistaken, and there was nothing in the report that indicated the cause of the accident, and that it didn't appear the truck was to blame. If she found out the drug problem she blamed herself for was the cause of his death, she'd never forgive herself. Sometimes I think back on all that's happened and can't justify how so many bad things could happen to such a nice person. TLDR. Found out car accident that killed my dad's fiancée's son was caused by drugs, and lied to prevent them from finding the truth. Another one. My dad has 4 years looked at kiddie porn. The soft kind, nudes, and both such. I'm not sure why. I'm almost positively sure it has no basis in real life and he doesn't eye up kids when out and about. I keep finding it occasionally on his computer. Either a list of recently accessed documents that he hadn't cleared yet, or some residue in his Usenet downloads folder. He keeps downloading it and putting on these CDs, just volumes and volumes of them. The weird thing is that maybe it's just a compulsive behavior because he password protects and RARs them before sticking them on the CDs, and in my experience, RAR files on CDs become almost immediately corrupted, which means he probably doesn't open them again or otherwise he won't stop making the CDs. I'm trying to think back to maybe if someone molested him as a kid, but I can't identify a single person from his childhood who would do that. The only confrontation we've ever had was when he first caught me looking at porn. I said I was just looking at the same porn as on his computer. This was back when kiddie porn and regular porn were the same thing to me, since I was like 12 or something. Afterwards, I would hint on it extremely subtly, like the time I was teaching him how to use torrents, and said, well, you already download stuff from usenet/newsgroups, right? It's kind of similar. And he said he had no idea what I was talking about. I don't know if my mom knows. I don't know if I'll ever ask him about it again. I just can't figure out a way to approach it. Maybe if I tell my brother first and work with him on it. The only thing it'll do is disrupt the family and prevent a possible event of him getting in big trouble about it in the future. PS, doing this through the Tor browser with brand new throwaway. I don't know why he's doing what he's doing, but I'm taking no chances. When I was 16, I was driving to go pick my boyfriend up from work. I looked away from the road for a minute and swerved, hitting the right rear of my car off the guardrail. Really, I was biting my damned fingernails. This was 1996. No cell phone picked up the boyfriend anyway, but because I knew my parents would kill me, told him I was hit by an out of control black minivan in the parking lot and the van drive away. I was 16 and an idiot. He called my mom, and she, positive I was lying, met us at the police station to call my bluff and make me file a report. Unbelievably, while my mother is up at the counter, a woman and her husband come into the police station to report a driver in a black minivan that ran them off the road. I nearly shit myself. The police never got a hold of the guy, who, remember, did not actually hit me. I was a lying little liar. He ended up leaving the country. Insurance paid for the damage, which it would have either way. I'm still lying about it because my mom loves to tell the story of how she was so sure I was lying. Turned out I was telling the truth, etc. Believe me, if she knew, she would have called me on it. She is not the kind of person to string something out for this long. I paid for it in the end. A guy that I stopped short in back of but never hit sued me claiming I had given him whiplash, despite my insurance company determining there was no collision and 2 witnesses on my side. Insurance ended up paying him. I was still 16 and still an idiot. TLDR, Leception. Not my secret, but I'm still expected not to flaunt it. My great grandmother had an illegitimate child. So, because she couldn't shame herself and her entire family, she ran away. After having the child, she started a new life claiming that her entire family died in a fire and that the child was her brother. She met my great grandfather, and shortly after, they got married. My great grandfather was horrible to the Tick. That was his nickname. To this day I still don't know his real name, or if he was ever given a real name. He made Tick work for everything throughout his childhood, doing things like chopping wood to scrubbing floors constantly, just to live under his roof. My great grandmother never said anything. Eventually, my great grandmother had 7 more children with her husband, and Tick was thrown out to fend for himself. After not hearing from Tick for a few months, my grandmother got worried and went out looking for him. She found out he had his own apartment and job and was doing fine. After proving himself to my grandfather, Tick was allowed to see his nieces and nephews. Around age 20, Grandma told Tick he wasn't her brother, but her son. Turned out that he figured it out years ago and was just keeping quiet. Around age 25, we still don't know his real birth date. Tick was driving his half-siblings and got into a car accident. He was killed on impact. The only reason a few of us even know about Tick is because Grandma put that he was her son on his gravestone. After Grandpa found out, he smashed the stone. Nothing was ever said of it again. A friend in high school would always make up stories to tell people. They were often believable, just mostly exaggerated truths. At first we shrug it off. especially when it was obvious. Stories change, new details emerge, or we just knew better. Eventually he started to include people that were not involved, including me. Sometimes he would even put me in a position where I have to either call him out or back him up. He was a good friend though, the kind of guy who would jump in front of a bullet for a complete stranger, or so he made us believe. In fact, one of his big lies was that he was in the military and had all sorts of special training, or whatever. Well, he and I were in the same class together when the teacher turned on the TV and 2 planes hit the WTC. That motherfucker jumped out of his seat and walked 2 miles straight to the recruitment office and enlisted, all while keeping up the lie that he was enlisted the whole time. I mean, honestly, I don't feel bad for lying for this guy and backing up his absurd stories, but the kicker here is that there was a story he often repeated before going to war about dealing drugs and whatever. It was partially true, except where he would always say I did X, Y, Z and managed his contacts and whatever. I used to nod and let him tell his stories, knowing the truth was we never dealt drugs. We would go half on a sack, blaze it up, and play video games, maybe a few times sold an ounce for 125% of its worth, so we could get a free quarter. Anyway, this guy gets back from war, tells his thug life story to some new friends at a bar. I chimed in, and he faking acts like he didn't even know I smoked weed. That's like a double cross lie, where I backed him up for years and now a decade later he's shocked to find out I ever smoked pot. You may blame PTSD, but he didn't forget one line of his drug dealing days. Whatever, I don't know what to tell ya. TLDR, lying is dumb. Alright, not me, but a friend of mine. Back a couple years ago, this friend of mine, let's call him Matt, had a huge crush on this girl, let's say Helen. Anyways, he was extremely, desperately in love with her and tried to make her like him. Matt also happens to be a pathological liar, so he had no qualms about saying ridiculous things to manipulate her. Over the course of several months, Matt had made zero progress. Even after all his lies, nothing. Helen liked him enough as a friend, but there was no romantic reciprocation. So he decided he would tell the lie to end all lies. He announced that he had a heart condition that could kill him, and that he was going to have a dangerous operation in several months to correct it. During these months, Matt played hardball with his lies, which is saying something. He kept trying to guilt Helen into going out with him, but Helen just wouldn't do it. Finally, the night before the surgery, Matt came over to a friend's house for a party, saying his goodbyes and taking good luck and don't worry left and right. Helen was there too, and Matt tried once more to guilt her into dating him. It didn't work. About 5 days later, I'm hanging out with Matt. I had a very strong suspicion Matt had been lying about his surgery, but he's already out of the hospital and hanging with friends less than a week after. I knew. So I asked to see the scar. He didn't even hesitate to take his shirt off, and lo and behold, there really is a scar. One problem, though. It was on the wrong side. And that was the day I realized Matt's problems were beyond simply lying pathologically. He was willing to harm himself to attract the attention guilt of a girl. The kicker is that Helen was a lesbian. We later found out. Matt had done all that for nothing. Created a throwaway for this. Certain people know that are on Reddit, and I don't want it tied to my username. When I was a sophomore in college, I brought my car to school because I was living further away from campus for cheaper rent. Now, I'm normally a person to take incredibly good care of my car. People always complimented that such an old car could look and run so well. I loved that beast. One day, I had driven to school in the morning, gone to class, and then went to hang out at my old fraternity house in the afternoon. As it happened a lot back then, hanging out turned into another party night as more and more people trickled in from class and the beer bottles began cracking open. I decide to crash at the house for the night and the party wages well into the night. At some point, my memory goes blank. The next morning, I wake up on the couch in my underwear with the motherfucker of all hangovers and realize I need a shower. So I grab my clothes and my bag, search around for the keys, and head to my car. As I get closer to my truck, I notice that something looks incredibly off, but I couldn't tell as it was on the other side of a planter/divider thingy in the parking lot. I see it when I'm about 50 feet away. The front driver side wheel is torn, too. Sheet. There was no remnant of a tire left. The aluminum rim was completely broken. There was a huge crack down the middle, and a large chunk of it missing entirely. The suspension is completely shot, hence why it looked funny. The car wasn't sitting level, and it looks like it had poured brake fluid until it was bone dry. What's worst, there was a huge gash in the pavement from where I apparently limped it back to its parking space and the rim dug in. Keep in mind, this was a Ford Ranger that was entirely steel and had survived multiple off-road driving sessions without so much as a scratch. This was a tough faking car, and I was amazed at the damage. And then the memories came back. I had decided at one point in my drunken stupor that I wanted Jack in the Crack, and rather than wait for someone to take me, I drove. Blasted out of my mind. I remember the drive-through dude asking if I was okay. I remember eating curly fries. After I got back to the house, there were still sheet loads of curly fries strewn about the cab. The details are still very fuzzy, and I don't remember all of it. My heart dropped out of my chest when I remembered what I had done. When I told my parents, I made up a story about how I fell asleep at the wheel and hit a curb. Completely plausible considering the damage. To this day, nobody knows except my girlfriend. Even then, I've never explicitly admitted to it. But thinking about what could've happened, and how I could've hit something, or God forbid, someone, makes me sick to this day. I'm incredibly grateful for my good fortune. I have never taken a chance with alcohol and motor vehicles since. Even if it's one drink, I will arrange for other transportation and drive myself. TLDR, drove drunk, destroyed my indestructible car, made up a story to my parents, didn't get a dwee, will never be behind the wheel after drinking again. Sorry for the wall of text, but I had to get this story out. Feels Goodman.jpg. This doesn't fit exactly since I have since told my parents the truth, but I kept this secret for like 8 years. When I was 14 years old, my friend and I were jumping off of my roof into my pool, despite being told countless times not to do that. I was standing on an overhang judging the gap between that and the pool to see if it was possible. It wasn't, and my friend stepped over to look. When he stepped on, I noticed the roof slightly lower. He didn't believe me, so he stepped off and then back on and noticed. He, being a genius, jumps straight up and down. Why? And the overhang completely disconnects from my roof and we go crashing to the ground. He ended up all scratched up, and I got a broken collarbone. We told everyone that we were swinging on the bench swing hanging from the roof and the roof collapsed on us. Since the two legs, part not connected to the roof, stayed standing, it was believable that we could have just gotten hit hard without being crushed. I felt bad for years about lying, because my parents would always say how lucky I was those legs stayed up, or I probably would have been killed or much more badly injured. I always had a great relationship with my parents, and wouldn't have even lied, if not for my friend being nervous they'd be mad at him. My entire family thinks that I stopped going to my first college of choice because I didn't want to bother getting a BS in psychology, and that the school I'm attending now has a BA which is easier. They think that the 3 semesters I did at community college were to save money. No, the truth is that I failed out of my first college after 3 semesters. I woke up every morning wish I wouldn't have, unable to crawl out of bed into class, and would sit in my room contemplating suicide. My girlfriend at the time thought I was going to classes, and I was so scared of my disability ruining my relationship with her that I just kept paying tuition and never going. Eventually I got a letter in the mail that said I was no longer welcome to take classes. That night I had to call her on the phone and I've never cried so much in my life. I thought everything was over, and I've never been so close to killing myself. In my mind, letting her down and possibly ruining my future was the worst thing ever. I suppose a second one is that my family thinks I buy lots of liquor because my friends come visit me all the time and we throw crazy rages. No, I just drink a handle of vodka each week to forget or to remember. Who really knows anymore? My breakup after a 5-year relationship. The girl in the first story cheated on me while studying abroad and wanted to break up, and I didn't find out until I was going to propose to her. So going from a lifetime commitment to nothing hasn't helped my depression situation at all. That I have significant frontal lobe damage. Back in 2005 I participated in a junior bantamweight fight, 115 pounds. I blew the guy out in 2 rounds and went out for some fun. Towards the end of the night, I began to feel really lightheaded, couldn't see very well, and I could barely hear anything anyone would say to me. I did not wake up the next morning. My mother had me rushed to the hospital, where they had discovered a small blood clot as well as brain swelling. They opened up my brain bucket, went to work, and I was out 2 weeks later. Being a formerly articulate chap, it has made this extremely difficult to deal with. I've retained all gross motor skills, but fine motor skills are very difficult. Writing, drawing, painting. My speech is so faked up that I have difficulty putting forth coherent sentences to questions that are asked of me. I now have abysmal short-term memory. I cannot remember much of anything. Before I was 19, no childhood friends, not my first car, my first girlfriend, any teachers' names, problems identifying relatives. I've developed a stutter. I tend to ramble. My eyesight had deteriorated from 20/15 to 20/40. I have 70% hearing loss as well as difficulty understanding. People need to sometimes repeat things 3 to 4 times for me to understand what is being said. I've managed to cover it up because I'm absolutely brilliant, but things are getting progressively worse. Worst part? I still box, have not supplied sufficient medical history to any state commission, and have never told a soul. I've attempted suicide multiple times. I haven't really, just once in high school. At first I said it because I wanted to make an impression on people. I think at the time I thought it would make me more interesting or have a sharper edge than the plain dull person I was. Now I feel like I keep it up to really push the impact my depression actually has on me. I think about doing it every day, but I don't act on it. Every day is a coin flip of what kind of day it will be for me. Could be good, and I won't show any signs of depression. Could be bad and all you'll find me doing is hiding away in my room. I've been dealing with it since I was 10, at least. That's when I became aware of it. I see a therapist, but I even told her the same lie. I don't know why. I feel like if I don't keep it up, I won't be taken seriously. This depression is the sole reason why I dropped out of college, let myself get dragged into a crappy codependent relationship that consumed the better part of my young adulthood, got circumcised as an adult, and racked up ridiculous amounts of debt by the time I was 20. Currently it is the reason I have trouble making friends, and why I can't get into a real relationship. I haven't been able to push myself to restart school or get a better job because of it. It's crippling my life, but when I don't tell people the lie, nothing ever clicks with them that this is a big deal until I tell it. Maybe I have committed suicide over and over, just of the mind, not the body. Well, since I know not too many people will judge me here, might as well tell the whole truth. This is my whole life in a nutshell. Edit. Care. This post is kinda really faking long. I'll post a major TLDR. I'm currently a minor, just to help you guys gauge my age. I've been living multiple lies and essentially my whole life's been a lie. Truths that help support the lie. I suffer from minor muscular dystrophy that affects my right pectoral muscle, or lack of it in this case, and I claim it's been from a case of minor abdominal cancer that's caused me to be in the hospital for a while. This was to cover for me not being able to be on the phone with my current ex-girlfriend who was a bit of a crazy jealous bitch, honestly. That's part 1 of the lie, and that's beside the point, but as you can see, it's a hard lie to keep covered up, and I've been doing this for a couple years. Aside from that, I've also been seeing, or talking at the least, with my best friend who happens to live about 360 miles from me, and she and I have been talking for multiple years. Let's just say that it's a complicated friendship and she may not have been the catalyst that caused my last breakup, which I'm pretty happy about but Edit. I live in SF. She lives in LA. Anywho. So recently back when girl 1 and I were dating we were actually just over a fight, but I refused to talk to her and I wasn't in a good mood anyways. I go back to talking with my best friend who I have yet to meet. We met on Tumblr, just talking, complimenting each other, blah blah. It goes on for a year/2, and we finally see an opportunity to see each other for the first time. So, aside from that, my heart's shifting towards my ex person, girl 2, and girl 1, G1. G1 and G2 know of each other, and even talk to each other, and I have introduced, over electronic means, obviously, G2 and G1 with each other. G1 and G2 both grow increasingly jealous of each other. G2 wishes she was still with me. I miss G2. And G1 is just like, no, you don't need to stop talking with her. I'm just going to continuously show you I'm unhappy and bitch at you every time I see a text from her. NBD. I grow increasingly tired of her bullshit. G1. As time passed, a school opportunity for me to go to LA pops up, and I'm able to meet my best friend of 2/3 years for the first time. We meet up, and immediately, there's a click. Let's not get all love-ade over here, but me going to LA involves both of us staying in a hotel, and we hook up for a night, just making out, until it's time for lights out. So I head back to my hotel room with a fat hickey on my neck and a huge smile on my face. There happened to be a dance that night, but hearing how bad it was, I'm happy I didn't attend. My roommates meet me back in my room, and are questioning me about my neck. After this whole shabbing, I've been attempting to get rid of G1 without hurting her, which I regret. I should faking broken her, but on the last day of my trip to LA, I finally get back home to SF, and I open Facebook. It's G2, asking me how my trip was, and etc. Then all of a sudden, her and this guy ask me if I knew who liked each other. In the end and TLDR, karma bit my ass. I cheated on my ex-girlfriend for my current girlfriend/best friend, who actually cares for me. I'm also living with a lie that's spread around, that I've got cancer when really it's just muscular dystrophy. This is the really funny part though.